Service Officer promotion list. As you all know, today's business meeting will be followed immediately by a nominations hearing. Now, I have to make some remarks about today's meetings. We were also set to vote on a number of nominations today, but unfortunately, we have another request to hold over the entire slate of nominees. This has now happened several times this Congress, with all of the requests coming from the same member of the minority. These holdovers are not a game. They can have serious and negative consequences for the State Department, for U.S. personnel, and for our constituents. Just look at two of the nominees from today's list that were held over. Absent the holdover, we would have voted on Gentry Smith's nomination. Mr. Smith is the nominee to head the State Department's Bureau of Diplomatic Security. His nomination has been pending for over 90 days, and it will be further delayed due to this holdover. So I ask, why stop the person whose job it is to keep our people safe? We would have also voted on Rena Bitter, the nominee to be Assistant Secretary of Consular Affairs. Every one of us has constituents who are desperate to get passports and are frustrated by the enormous backlog at the State Department. Ms. Bitter is a proven leader and committed to focusing like a laser on eliminating the backlog. She has been pending in the committee for over 90 days, but she will have to wait longer due to the holdover, and as a result, our constituents will likely have to wait longer as well. For decades, members of this committee have used holdovers sparingly and overall responsibly. Generally, when they have a question that needs to be answered or they need a little more time to engage on the nominee. These constant and blanket holdovers are unprecedented and, in my view, unjustified in this committee. No member of this committee has weaponized the holdover as has happened today and over the last several months. As chairman, I've returned the committee to operating under comity. That means that the ranking member has cleared every item on every markup agenda, including all nominees. Given the extensive minority input that often, understandably slows the process on the front end, it is clear that these holdovers serve no purpose other than delay. They're bad for the country, they're bad for our constituents, and they are testing the bounds of comity. We now have almost 30 nominees pending in the committee with completed files, and we will likely have more than 50 nominees pending by the end of the August recess. And so I am, it takes some hard work, but I am looking forward to working with the ranking member who has been, I must say, very cooperative and helpful in this regard, and trying to get more nominees up before the committee and hopefully to the floor before the recess. Now, let me turn to the legislative items on our agenda. We have before us today S-2297, the International Pandemic Preparedness and COVID-19 Response Act, S-812, a bill championing Taiwan's observer status in the World Health Organization, and S-Res 310, a resolution expressing solidarity with Cuban citizens and condemning the Cuban regime's latest acts of repression. I'm pleased that we'll be marking up S-2297, the International Pandemic Preparedness and COVID-19 Response Act. Senator Risch and I agreed to collaborate on this bill a few months ago, and today we have before us a bipartisan global health bill that includes a number of important measures to both enhance current COVID-19 response efforts and to ensure that we are better prepared for the next pandemic, whenever it may occur. COVID-19 is continuing to rage in many countries around the world. Most recently, as the Delta variant is showing us, the novel coronavirus continues to pose a threat to American lives and livelihoods as long as it persists anywhere in the world. And as we have learned from the pandemic, this dark chapter in which we have lost so many lives, only with better planning and better preparation here in the United States and around the world can we protect ourselves, our communities, and future generations from emerging pathogens. So I want to thank Senator Risch and his staff for their work on this bill and the dedication to this critical issue. It's one of the issues the ranking member has made a central one with me, and I'm glad that his name goes first on the bill. We'll also be considering S-812, which I introduced with Senator Inhofe in support of Taiwan's observer status in the World Health Organization. Efforts by the People's Republic of China to block Taiwan from gaining observer status at the World Health Assembly are narrow-minded and endanger the international community, particularly as we work to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. This bill makes clear that the United States must do more to champion Taiwan's engagement in the international community, and particularly at the World Health Organization at this time. Finally, we'll be marking up S-Res 310, which I introduced along with Senators Rubio, Risch, Kane, Cardin, and several other members to demonstrate our bipartisan support for the Cuban people. At a time when the Diaz-Canel regime is desperately unleashing a campaign of violence, human rights abuses, and forced disappearances against the Cuban people, we must make sure that U.S. actions are aimed solely at helping the Cuban people and holding the regime to account for its brutality. This is a bipartisan resolution that shows the United States Congress is united in its unflinching support for Cubans' fundamental human and social rights. We are speaking in honor and admiration of the work being carried on by brave freedom fighters in Cuba, and we are making a solemn promise not to ignore the suffering and subjugation of the Cuban people as they inch closer to realizing a future of freedom and prosperity. I look forward to strong support on this and the other two legislative items before that. And with that, let me recognize